Welcome to the Black Science Podcraft. This is a cross between a podcast and a presentation where you'll have one speaker delivering a concept, a theory, an idea to the other. So the goal is to allow you to critically analyse these points and to see if they hold any weight. So why black science? So there's a few reasons behind the term black science. Stay tuned to find out. Again, I think, we've got a lot of, I think it's going to be the same message. We've got a lot of divide amongst us, and it is about maybe finding a neutral thing. But I don't ever think that we're going to be able to, though, Madge. I don't think that, like what Naba was saying, to find one thing, because I do think, again, some of the cultural things will come into it. People will, carry pride in what they are, where they're from. And I think we should be very proud of where we're coming, our cultural practices and differences. So to put it, I think what it was for me, actually, which is why I did want you to go on it, what makes us black? You spoke about the natural us coming out of the mother's womb. I think if we focused more on those kind of similarities and solid things that we know to be fact, that would probably heighten people's more awareness of the truth. And maybe if we start with the truth.
You mentioned, said that there's some people got like a arbitrary tick box. Like if you know a couple African dishes, you know how to get to Peckham, you know how to get to Brixton, you know a couple man.
I think they're all negative.
Then
things,
you're
though.
black.
Yeah, but that's all negative though. That feeds into the negative though. So I'm trying to think of like what you were saying, the positive stuff that we could pull together on rather than the negative.
And I definitely agree. But I think if we're gonna unify under a term like black, it means accepting all of that. All of it means all that means.
No, not that negative stuff.
No, but I actually think there's an aspect of accepting your own darkness that's important.
True.
So I think although it's important to celebrate
like to
some
eat
of
chicken, I'm a vegan, by the way.
cultural excellences or the cultural norms that we'd like to be cultural norms, I think also important, if we're going to unify under a term that's not an old term, we have to also accept the negative connotations, the stereotypes, the issues that we've had with ourselves.
Okay.
Regarding the topic, regarding the self, the
I
term.
think that's unavoidable. The problem we have is that we only attach it to negative
The
things.
negative, that's what I was saying. So it's now
Everything
doing more
that we
positives.
agree on, the only stuff we agree on is the negatives. How about that? We
And that's why I
only
like
agree on the negatives.
We need
It's
to look
so
at more
mad.
of the positive and celebrate the positives, agree on the positives and use those. I liked what you said about using our different words for us through our languages rather than the black that you're saying we shouldn't have an issue with. I think
We
that
need
would be
to get over it.
but how exactly? So what is the solution?
Get
but I
over
think
it.
that would be a
Objective reality.
No, I don't
Truth.
think it's something. Okay.
No,
some of the points you said, some of the points you said are
link our
definite.
understanding to truth.
Yeah.
This is my point. So I don't
Some
care
of those
what you
points-
taught me about black. I know the truth.
Yeah.
Right? That is the only solution, because again, no matter the brain is an associative mechanism.
But you've
If
got
I
to feed
associate
people
black
that
with
positivity.
negative,
No, but you've got to
and then
feed people the
I have a
positive
different
in
word.
order for them to change their minds. So again, taking on some of the more positive ways, calling ourselves what we originally called ourselves, regardless of the word black. Sorry, Matt. I
mean,
think that would bring the positive.
Taking pride in
I
the
don't care
positives
about the
and,
Yes.
and critically thinking about the negative connotation. I think it's important to have a
critical
an
analysis
analytical,
of what am I
Who's
actually,
saying
why am I so
way
opposed
of,
to it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that means looking at our own subconscious biases
Yes.
as it relates to these things, and that means being honest. And I think a lot of people don't want to
But
be
if
honest.
you bring that to them
it's
straight
energy.
away, but if you bring that to them straight away, like what Matt said, they'll get defensive. So it's more about bringing the positives, finding a way to speak to people, then bringing them around. Because otherwise, how else is it going to be done?
Yeah.
This is a good discussion.
And
This
then-
is a good
and then,
topic.
what we saying that we should just have black on the job application. When I see just black.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that, like I say, because I have a certain understanding.
Yeah.
And this is my thing. This is
So
my
maybe you're
point.
saying that that's what it should be. It should just
That
be one.
we shouldn't give a toss about it. The only reason we give a toss
Black,
is because
white,
we've
other.
accepted a certain.
That'll be more straightforward.
I think we're the only
Where's
group
the
of
open
people.
box? Tell me who you are.
In it,
I'd
I'd put other. I'd probably put other. To be fair,
I was gonna say I think we're the only group of people that actually needs something like that universal. But
No, but if you look at white, it's you got white,
They have a
Caucasian,
culture.
European,
Yeah.
Irish.
No,
I was saying
There's
need.
loads of
I was
different-
saying need.
yeah.
I was saying we're the only group that actually need a title like that. That was my argument. But even that, I kind of disagree because from external purposes, there's a benefit of having the term white.
They have
From our
black,
point of
white,
view.
Asian. On the white, loads of denomination. On the black, loads of denomination.
Yeah.
On the other, and the Asian, there's the Southeast Asians.
Yeah.
There's all
there's all
different
different ones now. Yeah. They've really.
and it's
broken
only
it
going to
down.
get wider.
No, but Asian is not like white and black. So the point I'm making about this title.
Yeah, but
type
Asian
of
can be
title.
Indian and it can be
Yeah,
Oriental.
but it's not like white
types
and
of-
black. Asian is a geographical
Yeah.
term. So white and black
Yeah.
are different.
Yeah.
Then there's specific reasons for white. Like I said, they picked that term to unify them at a particular time, and we picked the term black to unify. And I'm saying there's a benefit for having it. I was gonna say black are the only ones that need a unifying term. Because we actually need to be unified. White, I was going to say that. White, they don't need a term.
They did.
They don't need it.
That's
They
why
don't
they-
need it because they just behave that way anyway.
They
but,
needed European,
But
they
I'm
needed
saying
white, they needed-
externally,
They do have it. Yeah,
they
they do.
did need
If you
it.
take
They
a white-
don't anymore. They did it again. It's a technique used to unify at a particular time where we need to bring people together because they're not together. They was warring people. They was warring tribes. They needed to recognize, no, we are not different. We need to be somehow grouped. Even though we're going to fight amongst ourselves,
I was gonna
we're
say,
still
they-
going to fight
yeah.
amongst ourselves. But we need to recognize there's still us and them. So let's call ourselves white. That's what they did. That's literally how
White,
the term white
European.
began to be
European.
used.
White.
That's why they call it United
Yeah.
Kingdom.
That's
Yeah.
literally
Got the European Union.
That's
as well.
true.
Got
But
these-
when
Yeah.
the term white, they started to use it in the
Yeah.
way they use it now. That was why they used it. It wasn't like, don't get me wrong. First, they started using it because it referred to rich white women because they stayed in house, and it was literally a term for white women. It wasn't for everyone else, and you wasn't really respected for a white man to be that pale, right? Because that means you don't get around.
Yeah.
You're not on the job, right? But then again, literally, they took the term as a group to unify them as a group because they wanted to be unified. But now they're already unified, so they don't actually need a term. It doesn't benefit them. So now they can call themselves.
So
They do
we
it now.
do
What they
need a
do now, they classify
unifying-
themselves as American. They classify themselves as French. They classify themselves as Italian. But they function as a group.
Yeah,
So
that's
they don't
true.
need the term.
That is true.
They don't need the term. It's a technique used for people
But
that
it's-
need the term. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
But I
When
still
you
feel
need,
like we need a term though.
No, I'm saying we do.
Yeah, we do.
I'm
we
saying
do.
we do.
I do
I'm saying
agree. I
we
do
are the
agree with
only
that
one.
from
My
what
point
you're
is,
saying.
we are the only ones that need a term.
Yeah.
Our problem is that we don't like the
Accept
term.
it.
I don't
Yeah, yeah.
care what. I hear what you're saying, but we have a problem with blackness itself. Whatever word you use it, and I'm saying that's an internalized reality. And I can just quote,
I think
colorism
that's
is
what
there
he's sticking
wherever we
to.
are.
I
That's
said
a
I
fun-
think that's what he's sticking to. That's
no,
it.
no, because it's a fact. You know, we all have already agreed. Colorism is wherever we are. So we have a problem with darkness and blackness. We do. Whatever word you want to use, you can say that, oh, we like this word and not that word. Doesn't change the fact the thing that the word is describing,
It'd be
we have a
interesting
problem
for
with.
other people to get involved in this conversation, in particular about that part. Because what do we call ourselves going forward then? How do we unify? Because we do need something to unify. You just said that's what they done.
Again, the
So-
problem isn't a new title for me. The problem is the way we view the current title. And that is the problem I'm
And
pointing
we're always
at.
going to all view it differently, I
Yeah,
think.
and I don't.
That's what I mean.
All black people don't unify under
That, yeah, we're always
under
gonna view-
term.
so that's what I'm
I
saying.
think some
Because
of us
we have a problem with it.
Yeah, but
That's
even
my
then-
point.
but even if
I
we
just think
do-
because we're such diverse peoples anyway.
That's
I
right.
think we unite under movements. We might unite under specific goals. I don't think we unite under a term. I don't.
Yeah,
think,
but again, you use a term because you're trying to do a movement. It's a technique used to unify because unification is required
I'm asking you,
for a
what- and-
specific
and-
reason.
should it
and
be?
people right across the continent.
it's not about a change of
right
name.
across the other land. We've got
He made a
African
point.
unions. We've got
No, but it would
African-
have to be a change of
Wholly
name.
for different African
It doesn't
unions.
have to be.
Yeah, that call themselves African unions
Yes.
for because we can't because Nigerian, Congolese. We don't use the terms. We use African. So
Yeah.
the motherland.
But it's problematic because that doesn't unify
So why
black
can't we
people
just still say
specifically.
What I'm
African?
saying is that it
Why
does-
can't we
as
just
a
all
Pan-
call
as
it-
a Pan-African, it does unify you specifically.
Yeah, why exactly?
Pan-African, but that's not African Union.
Under African, everything
Union,
comes underneath it.
No, but African, he's talking about certain organizations.
Certain
These are two different points now. He's talking about certain organizations.
organizations
African
in
unions,
Africa.
right? So that's African Union. That doesn't signify black people, right? That doesn't signify black people. So there's a problem. And again, as we saw the video, the African term is not even ours, right?
And then I think
it cuts out Africans
there's
or black
a reason
people in the
for
Caribbean.
Africans on the
It
continent.
cuts out black people
Yeah,
in
but I
South
think we're going
America.
round in
It cuts out.
circles now.
No. This isn't going around in circles. This is a fresh point. Again, you're saying why these term is different and that term is different, and we need a new term. These are all different points.
No, I think what
Black
arguing
does
is
something
African
that
was
all of those
is a good
things
term.
don't do. That's the point I'm
Unifies
making.
us.
Right. So African unions don't do that, right?
I think- no,
Even African doesn't
African
do that
Union.
because people want to say that I'm Caribbean or I'm South American or I'm Black American. So even African doesn't work.
Or even black. Yeah, I could be.
Right?
completely
But black
wrong.
does.
Yeah, but that see, anytime I hear people say that we can't use the word term African because people want to use the term or the nation that they went to after they've been in
it should just
Africa.
be African, forget
I think
black.
that shows a level of ignorance, and I think the ignorance requires education because I think African is a term that's more realistic. That
I think we should just be
globally
African.
we can use.
Yeah.
Caribbeans can use it.
Yeah.
Africans. That's why we use the word diaspora.
Yeah.
That's why
African.
we use the word diaspora.
Yeah.
Pan African.
Why aren't we just called African?
But again,
Because
again,
it's a national term. So there are plenty of people that do not want to be called African. They want to be called, whether it's Jamaican, whether it's Bayesian, whether it's Colombian, whether it's South American or
We're all
American.
African.
It happens all the time. We know this is a thing, right? The problem with these national titles is that they're national titles, so you cling to that geography. Even though you went up there and you went up there, we're all from here. That's what people do. Right, so I'm saying, fine, cling to your title. That's fine. You can do that, but no matter where you are, you're still black. Right? This is so simple. Don't overlook how important and how pivotal that is. And again, historically, we knew that thousands of years ago. We did the same thing.
Yeah, but
Even within Africa, we understood that. Right? You know what? The easiest thing to do right now is just identify ourselves as black because that means all of us are in.
And
all of us are in.
I agree
Simple.
with that point. I agree with that point, but I agree with that point, but only because they use their own language. Which
That's
is why
not the point, bruv. It's not.
is the point.
Because how about this? That wasn't the language of everyone that joined. That wasn't the language that everyone that joined. That was a whole bunch of African people from all over the place.
And look what
Right?
look at the word you said.
No,
African.
because that's just because we all understand what I mean by that. That's the only reason
Yeah,
I'm
I
saying that.
know,
Because
but
we
then
have
that's
a
something
language.
that we need. Like the point of this
But
debate
that's
is
just going
what
away
is
from this
black
point.
science?
Before we shift,
Yeah,
because
go
you
on.
understand what I just said
because
there.
there was 42. They say, for example, there was 42 tribes
Right.
that became together under Nama and decided
Right.
to use the word Kem. It was called
Right.
Karsetti. It was many names before
exactly.
that.
So they did
Now,
none of them. That wasn't all their
one
language.
African man, one African tribe
Yes.
who was the dominant, they used the name that they decided.
Right.
Now, I would argue again for an African term.
That's fine, but the
I
point
still
I'm
think
making,
African
no,
is
that's
well.
fine. That's fine. The point I'm making is
I agree, but I think we need an African term. For
Yeah,
that.
we need an African term. That's what I'm going to say.
that's fine
and I think
too.
you're right. Even then, there will be, whether it's black, because people
He's
got,
right, what
people got
he's
negative
saying.
connotations about black.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it's African, people,
Yeah.
but I'm not from Africa. I was born in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
yard. There's always going
there's
to
always
be
gonna be,
that.
but we still would
But
kind of
that's
call
a
ourselves.
different issue, though. Those are two different issues.
It's two different issues. It's coming from the
is
same
a
level.
ge-
It's coming from
True,
a naysayer who don't want to be labelled or grouped into one box.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be some
And
of us
we-
who don't
that's
want to
right.
be put into
No,
one
that's
box
what you're saying,
because of a
that
term.
white people do.
So that,
But
for that reason, I don't think
objectively-
we can unify under one term.
No, I hear you.
That's the
Yeah,
problem.
I
but
like to think we can use
that's the
African,
problem.
unrealistic. I like to think we could use term black because
But
it
that's the
makes
problem.
sense. Logically,
there's
it
an objective
makes
truth.
sense.
So that's the point I'm
Yeah.
making.
But-
There. What you just said there, it's not a clear dichotomy because one is more true than the other, right?
Yeah.
The thing we are actually all black. So that's actually the fact. So you don't like it, whatever
No, but
you
we
can
are
say.
all actually African as well, whether you're
No,
born.
but you can say
Yeah.
I'm Jamaican.
No, but we are all African.
But you can
It
say
does
I'm
not
Jamaican. No,
matter.
no,
That's
I'm
my
Jamaican.
point. That's
Oh,
why I go
my
around.
passport. Look at my passport,
No.
bro.
Yeah.
No.
I was born. What do you mean, bro?
No.
Do you know what I mean? So that, but you can't get away from. You are black, though, aren't you? Yeah.
Well, my eyebrows are.
So now you want to do that? That is
My
just,
eyes are black.
Brown.
Yeah. I don't think they want to say their eyes are black, you know, now they're dark
If you're
hazel.
getting away,
That's me. That's my one.
if you want to get away from the social construct,
Look at my eyes.
then we can't win.
And even then,
Because
that's
even
how I'm
nation,
feeling.
even
jet
nation
black.
is a social
It's not even
construct.
jet black, but that's how I'm feeling though. Now I feel like we can't win.
No. You can. We just got to stick with.
black.
Even nation is a social
he's just saying
construct. Even nation is a social construct.
we
So
agree
if
that
you're
we should
gonna
just be
get
black.
away from a social construct, because now the fact that this isn't that.
So we should
That is
just be
the height of
comfortable.
social construct. It doesn't describe anything.
We should just be
What,
comfortable with
blackness?
calling
Yeah.
ourselves
No,
black.
it does. It literally describes me, what I am, the blackness of my skin.
And he gave
That's a fact.
reasons for
God,
that.
God gave me
Yeah,
that.
and look, go on, and that's
God
what it
gave
talks
me that.
about.
No,
He
no,
says
we're not gonna go
what
back
makes
over
us
that.
black. You didn't.
We're not
You
gonna
didn't
go
We haven't even got there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But God gave me that. Remember, if me, Ugandan, if I was actually in my country of birth and stayed there, I would be so much darker.
Yeah.
I'd be so much darker, and in certain lights, I would look black.
Yeah. In certain lights.
Yeah, but the point is, I would
He's
actually
still
look
black.
black.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's still black.
That's the point I'm making.
I'm not
So
gonna
that
argue-
is a
I'm not
thing that comes with me being alive. Nothing I can choose about that. That's the point I'm making. So that is more truer than anything else. A nation is an invention of some group of people.
'Cause
That is a
the
pure,
reason why it's- the
pure
reason why it's
social
interesting-
What are you
construct.
saying?
The reason why
A
it's
nation,
interesting.
Brazil was only Brazil because someone agreed and everyone agreed it's Brazil. It wasn't Brazil the other day, and it might not be Brazil tomorrow, but it's Brazil today.
Because when you say,
yeah?
well,
But
why
my
it's
blackness
interesting
is just how
when
I
you
came
say
here.
black, when you say black, you're actually saying African because actually,
That's right. That's
No,
what
but
I
our
feel.
brown
African is a
skin,
Latin term.
our brown skin
African
is
is a
shared
Latin
by
term.
many other ethnic groups that we wouldn't determine as black.
black.
So what makes their brown skin and my brown skin different?
Right,
Or
they black.
they've got straighter
African.
black hair than me. Do you understand? So my point is,
Latin, African is Latin.
yeah,
I mean, African is a Latin term. So before African, there was black people, and they was probably describing themselves as black. So you say to that?
it's not. It's
You say it?
I'm not arguing against one or the other. I'm saying to you, whatever side you lean on, African or black, there are going to be pockets of people who don't want to identify with the term because
I'm
of
with you.
either the negative
I'm with you.
connotations or the national background or national pride or their patriotism.
Adjudicator, you should be keeping
Yeah,
us on
no,
track.
but that's what all the
no,
time
you're
was.
right,
Yeah,
you're
no,
right. Let me
but
check.
I
All
agree
right.
what he's saying though.
I'm
I'm
gonna
like
stick-
that, and I am saying.
I'm gonna try to run this
15
now.
minutes.
Keep going, 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 keep going.
I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going.
Go, tamarind ting, good for magnesium, good for fiber, cherry nice, very good for blood circulation, recovery, root tonic, blood circulation, iron. Power bitters, start your morning and your day with it. Clean your gut.
Okay. In real objective terms, what is black? Yeah? Black is not a color. Now, depending on who's talking, you might hear that the definition of black is the absence of light. Yeah, that's what it
Right,
says in the
which is what
dictionary.
we're saying.
It's not
That's
a
what it
color,
says,
yeah.
the absence of light. But I would argue that's not a scientific definition. To define a thing as the absence of another thing is not to define a thing at all, right? If you're just saying a thing is an absence of another thing, that's not, you've not really defined the thing. You've just said there's not another thing isn't there. You've not described what the thing that you're
What the
talking
thing
about
is,
is,
yeah.
right? So that's not really a scientific definition at all. Now, I would argue black is that which absorbs all light, right? Now, both are true in terms of what a definition is, because again, you can look in the dictionary and see it's the absence of light. But I would argue that one is more true than the other. Obviously, what I think is more true.
Absence or the all, yeah.
Yeah, one is the absence of light, and one is the absorption of all, that which absorbs all light, right? In physics, a black body is an idealized physical body that absorbs all incident electromagnetic radiation. So it just absorbs all light. That is what physics describes a black body
black,
as, right? It's not what it defines it as black. It says a thing that is considered a black body, it's not a real thing, but if something could absorb everything, they'd call it a black body, right? Because that's what black is.
With
That
all
which
colours
is
coming
black.
out of it, yeah.
The definition
absorbs
was, yeah, black is not a term,
everything,
it's not a color.
right?
It's not-
Colour.
Yeah, it's not.
And I would argue to make my point, right? Consider the night sky, right? On a cloudless night, apart from the stars and other things, moons, planets, and whatnot, you would say that space is black, right? But if it was black in the other definition, the absence of all light, that wouldn't make sense, because even though you're looking at space and it's black, there's light passing through that space. That's how you can see the stars, and there's light flying all around there.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at a black spot in the sky, you might see that there's no light there, but that doesn't mean there's no light there.
So in your visible spectrum of light, yeah.
It's not on your visible spectrum, right? So there's light there, but it's
There's
not
always
hitting
light
something.
somewhere. Yeah.
It's not hitting something that's reflecting back into your eyes. So even though you're looking at a black piece of space, there's light there. So there's no absence of light. So this is how I can kind of suggest the point I'm making. It isn't an accurate definition to say black is the absence of light, because light can be in a space where you can't. Because the truth about light is invisible. Light is only visible when it's reflected or refracted. So pure light in itself, visible light, like you're saying, is when light is reflected off of something or refracted. Right now, between me and you, there's a whole bunch of light.
Lights, yeah. And even when you close your eyes now, it's dark there, but you can still see the lights.
That's kind of different to what I'm saying.
Okay, sorry.
But more what I'm saying is right now, between me and you here, there's light flying, but I can't perceive it. I can only perceive the light that's hit you and is coming back into my eyes. If it doesn't hit you and reflects back...
limited spectrum, yeah.
We've got a limited spectrum. If it doesn't hit something and reflects back into my eyes after hitting something, I won't see it. Right? If I was in a vacuum and there was nothing in the room and there was a torch here shining light right past my eyes like that, I would see nothing. But there's a beam of light that's literally in front of my eyes, right? Because light is invisible. It's actually there, but it's only when it hits something. In a way, you could say it's when it's made unpure by going through something or reflecting off of something. I'm not seeing true light. I'm only seeing affected or influenced or somehow tampered with light. That's the only light we see once it's been tampered with. But in its pure state, just flying through the air, we don't see it. We can't see it until it hits something else, right? That's just the physical truth of light, right? If you take that fact and understand that, and the understanding that a black thing is a thing that absorbs all light, then, as some have argued, that which is black is truly what light looks like, right? You could argue that if a black thing is that which absorbs all light, and then when you're actually looking at a black thing, you're not actually seeing light coming back off of it, which is tampered with light. You're just seeing the thing that absorbs light. Then arguably, black is what light looks like, because you can't actually see light. Now, it sounds like a mad kind of conceptual analysis going around the corner, but if you really think about it, it kind of makes sense. And this is the rhetoric around blackness being crystallized light that you might have heard from people like Henry Dumas or Dr. Malachi Z. York and many other people in the black conscious type of movement. This is the logic. If black absorbs light and you can't actually see light until it hits something, and when you're looking at something black, you're not actually seeing light come off it, you're just seeing the thing that has absorbed light, and that's all you're seeing, then maybe you're looking at light, and that's what light actually looks like. So they argue it's crystallized light. This is where all right, boom. Everything starts in the blackness as undivine realm of potential in the spiritual language. That is another reason to look at it as crystallized light. Everything is on the frequency spectrum somewhere, and black is that which absorbs all frequencies. So this is another reason you can look at it as crystallized light. I'm not saying that's what I believe, but this is just
carbon.
I don't, I don't, right? All other visible light color is what we see when a limited amount of light is reflected back. White is what we see when the object absorbs nothing and reflects it back. Now, then you would say, isn't white what light looks like? Again, white is what you see when it's reflected back. So it has to be touched. So it is just the visible light, not all light. Whereas black absorbs all light.
White visible. So black and white actually aren't like...
They're not colours.
They're not actually colours.
They're not colours.
They're not actually colours.
Colours are what we see when a specific frequency is reflected back. So we see
on the other side. They're on other sides of the spectrum, innit?
Right.
Like the black
one
and
absorbs
white
everything and one don't absorb anything. Right. And the colours are what we see when a particular bit is bounced back and everything else is absorbed. So all colours absorb a certain degree. Black absorbs everything and white absorbs nothing. It only reflects, so it only tampers with it and gives it back so you can perceive that. So what makes us black? Yeah, melanin, but what is melanin? We are generally told that it's a pigment in our hair, eyes and skin that protects us from the sunlight. We are not told that it is pretty much everywhere, right? It's in our ear, it appears to protect cells. We're not really sure, but they think that it protects cells from oxidative stress and age-related damage. It's in our substantia nigra. Now, substantia nigra, you mentioned this term earlier, that's just Spanish for black substance. We've got this black substance in our brain, it's called neuromelanin, and we got a whole bunch of it in there. They think it's there to protect us from oxidative stress and mental toxicity, which may reduce the risk of neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's disease. It's definitely linked to Parkinson's disease. But yeah, we got this area in our brain, substantia nigra, which means black substance. We got it in our brain and it's linked to our health. It's also in our brain.
or is it not like is that just in us?
Say that again.
Is that like
In all humans?
In all humans,
All
yeah,
humans.
okay.
It's only you. Is it hue melanin? It's only hue melanin that gives
That's
us our dark pigment. Is it you?
I'll get there. So we got locus coeruleus, right? That's also neuromelanin in our brain. That's in our brainstem area, which may similarly protect neurons and involved in stress response,
that's
tension, and
everybody's
arousal.
brain. Yeah.
So that's another section in our brain, a locus coeruleus, that has neuromelanin. Melanin is also found in the leptomeninges, the protective membranes covering the brain and the spinal cord. The function of melanin here is not fully understood. That's all I could find on that. So this is another layer of melanin there. So we got 3 spots with
didn't know
a lot of neuromelanin, and one of the spots they don't even know what it's doing there. The other ones they theorize what it's doing there, but they're not 100% sure. Melanin is present in the mucosal linings in the mouth, nose, where it may play a protective role, shielding tissues from toxins, pathogens, and mechanical stress, but it might do other stuff. They're not too sure again. Melanin-like pigments are present in other organs like the pancreas, thyroid, ovaries. Although these findings are less common and the exact function is not fully understood, like everywhere else, hypotheses include protecting us against oxidative stress, hormonal regulation, and shielding from environmental toxins. Again, they're not 100% sure what it's doing there. Yes, melanin can be found in our testes of many species, including humans, and may protect sperm from genetic mutations. So apparently it's on the sperm, and I even saw somewhere it's on eggs as well, on the female eggs. Humans make neuromelanin in less amounts than humans make the most neuromelanin, and in lesser amounts some other non-human primates make some, but here the kicker, there's no neuromelanin in lesser animals. So humans are special. We make the most of this stuff. Some primates make a little bit of this stuff, but basically all other animals don't make none of this stuff. So arguably neuromelanin is somehow linked to us being very human, right? Neuromelanin is black or dark brown. Immunomelanin is black or dark brown. That's the stuff that we have. That's the immunomelanin. That's the stuff black people have. And phenomelanin is more red or yellow. That's the one that's more in Asian people and white people, right? The red and yellow, the phenomelanin. Importantly, several studies have shown that the amount of melanin deposited in the external body surface is correlated with the amount of melanin located inside the body. Now, I didn't go through all the other places it's in your organs. It's all over the place in your body.
I always thought it was just the skin.
Right? No. It's all over the place. So it helps with our eyes. It helps with so many different things, right? And they don't even know what it does, right? How about that? The key point I just made there, hear that one again, right? The amount of melanin inside us is correlated to the amount of melanin on our skin, right? That's what they've said, right? Melanin protects us from this. All right, here's my thing, right? If melanin protects us from the sun, then how comes a dark-skinned person gets darker in the sunlight if they don't need more protection? I mentioned this to you before. This is just my little question to any scientist that watches this. I would like you to answer. Me, I'm a dark-skinned person, and in my country, there's people that are not as dark as me, right? And they've been there their whole life, right? They're equally as protected from skin cancer, right? So if the only purpose of having it in my skin is to protect us from skin cancer, why has my evolutionary process led me to get darker under the sun? I don't need to be darker to protect me from the sun, right? There are lighter people than me that are just as protected from the sun and no more likely to get cancer than me, right?
You know what I've realised though, when I've gone to a yard at times as a youth, I'll get darker to a certain point, then I might peel.
Yeah.
That's sunburning.
But what I'm saying is that darkness is only for like the first maybe week or something. Then it will level out. I won't remain that dark. Yeah. It's almost like my melanin is climatizing to more photon rays than I get over here.
I'm with you.
So I don't stay dark.
No, I'm with you.
I just get that for like maybe the first week, and then I slowly lighten back up.
But do you get what the point I'm making though? Because what I'm pointing at is that the
why would I need to get darker?
Why is my body, my biology developed the ability to? I'm with you. Why has my body developed the ability to get darker if it's the only purpose of having the melanin to protect me from the sun? I don't need more protection.
Oh, you talking about
already protected.
The different shades, or you specific? Because I was
me comparison to other people that are not as dark as me. Because again, the argument is that we have it to protect us from the sun. We've evolved this ability to protect us from the sun. But if I only need so much to protect us from the sun, then why do I have more than is needed to protect me from the sun? Evolution, biology is very efficient. The body won't evolve this ability to create all this pigment for no reason. It takes effort and energy to create all this pigment. But here we have an example that I'm creating well excess in the need for the task it says it's for. They say it's for to protect me.
All these people on
they're
the
not that
now
dark. This is my point. They're not that dark. So that's my point. So then to argue that it's only there to protect us is an oversimplification of its purpose. That's my theory, right? If I don't need to be darker to protect me, then it's not there for protection. Right, and then this links to
why the different shades.
Let me try.
Why the different shades of black when actually
and I didn't even realize it was in a different position.
That one is not as simple. I want to talk about that at another point as well. But if right, so now if we compare it to chlorophyll, which is a very similar pigment. Chlorophyll is the green stuff in the plants that the plants use to eat sunlight. They used to make sunlight out of food. Right, melanin is very similar. Right. This is a quote, right? Our findings of intrinsic property of melanin to transform light energy into chemical energy by means of water dissociation, like chlorophyll in plants. So that is how chlorophyll uses light to get energy. It can use light energy to break the water molecule in two, and in that releasing some energy.
Is the darker the green, the more efficient the photosynthesis?
I doubt it. It's just in a certain amount of chlorophyll allows it to happen. It's a process. So green, the chlorophyll is green, and it uses the light to break the water molecule, and it uses that to make energy to feed itself. It eats sunlight because of the pigment it has, right? Now, if black absorbs more light than green, right, and our findings, I'll quote it again, our finding of intrinsic property of melanin to transform light energy into chemical energy by means of water dissociation, like chlorophyll in plants, that's what it's called, water dissociation. Melanin does the same thing. Then arguably, getting darker is your body trying to get more sunlight so it can, I don't know, make some energy. Maybe. I'm just saying that's what they know it can do, right? Okay. To that degree. They don't know all the stuff it does, but we know it can do what light does for plants. So why else would we get darker? If the closer you are to black, the more light you absorb, arguably the more energy you can create from that. I'm going to quote all of this. This is all from a source, right? Black people have the most significant expansion of melanin content with sun exposure, which correlates with the pigmentation of the skin. What makes melanin stand out from the comparison to its siblings is that its crystalline structure, which has the potential to transfer electric charges fluently. So the melanin in black people is different. It has a crystalline structure. It allows it to be a better conductor of electricity. This could open doors to advanced technology and research, setting up melanin to have greater humanitarian roots rather than to divide humans into racial groups that are ranked by false superiority. Right? Experiments have shown that melanin can conduct electricity sometimes with virtually no resistance. That's just another way of saying it's a superconductor.
So the darker you are, the better conductor you are. So you'll be right in making that assumption.
Melanin specifically is a superconductor. That's what it's called. Yeah. Melanin must undergo special conditions to exhibit these characteristics, and once in the proper state, conductive melanin has groundbreaking applications in biotechnology, computing, and sustainability. Coupled with the exciting outlook of melanin's impact on human quality of life are serious precautions to consider. Previous studies regarding melanin's presence in the human body have broadly been used to bolster racist systems whose consequently still affect millions. However, there exists a future where history does not repeat itself, and the future melanin could find itself at the center of technological innovation. That's just a source that I found online about the different realities and truths about melanin. Okay, so melanin, 2024, the price of melanin is £580 a gram, meaning the average value of an adult black person's melanin would be about £42.5 million.
Wow.
Right? Crazy. Remember, £580 a gram. Right now, gold is £70 a gram. So when they say melanin is worth more than gold, it's not a little bit. It's a stupid amount more than gold.
Real pound of flesh from a dark skin, man.
Yeah, that's what they're selling.
Biological purpose of melanin is not clear, but here is an interesting point raised on melanin by Francis Cress Wilson.
Let me just say this. What is very interesting is in the study of biology, biologists who have studied evolution, one of the very interesting things that they say is that the more functional skin pigment cells in the animal kingdom, the higher you are on the scale of phylogenetic ascension. In other words, nature in the course of evolution went to its highest state when it produced a cell that could produce pigment, and that we were sliding backwards. The mutation to albinism is a step backwards in the scale of evolution. Are you aware of that, Dr. Shockley?
No, I'm not aware of that particular one. I am aware of another basic genetic difference, and that is that the rate of maturation of a neurological system gets longer and longer the more advanced the animal is, and there is that is one of the items on the racial difference, that the neurological development of blacks is faster than whites. Black babies walk on the average a month earlier than white babies. And the period
and
of
black people are
gestation...
much more creative also than white.
Dr. Wells, Shockley, correct me if I'm incorrect. Didn't the Giselle schedule, which tested the intelligence of children, make a correlative between intelligence and walking early?
Yes.
And I would think it probably would have been negative.
No, it was not. It was positive.
Well,
the motor skills on the Giselle schedule indicated that earlier precocious walking children, there was a correlation between that and high intelligence.
This may be true. It might be true within a group. I'm not sure of that.
Well, maybe
I know that there is a correlation in terms of things earlier than walking. In this, at the 6-month stage, Nancy Bailey at Berkeley has established that white children who come from the most advanced families and who later, when they become older, are out at the top, at the first 6 months they are relatively retarded compared to children who are from families of less accomplishment and who don't go as far. But this, so there are a number of these things certainly to be brought in.
Fine.
But this
Giselle schedule is a very authentic, accepted, institutional psychological experiment.
And so is the Nancy Bailey early test.
I'd like to take another call at this.
Considering black is only bad if we say so, but that which makes us black is worth more than gold, is directly linked to our mental and physical health, and quite frankly isn't understood how much stuff this stuff can do, right? Should we believe black is bad? That's the question.
That is a good point. That one there, with the amount of value that's put on it, monetary, a lot of people will be interested in that side of it. There's something special about it.
There's many things special.
Yeah, well,
there's so many things special, and then we don't even know the other stuff. We don't even know. Like, we don't know the other stuff, but the stuff we know, this crystal. I had to find that out the other day. I didn't even know that it's crystalline structure, right? And only in our melanin, and it's a superconductor. I knew that, but this crystalline structure, I didn't know that, and I didn't know that only humans, well, some primates make some, but basically humans make the most. Some primates make a little bit, and all other animals don't make nothing. And we got to admit, humans are pretty different to the rest of animals, right? So arguably,
called a God particle.
Arguably, we can use that term, but arguably there's something significant about having a lot of neuromelanin, and then how much melanin we got outside is correlated to how much melanin we got inside.
Which is what I've learned today, which I didn't know that.
I had to research that myself.
Oh, right.
Because I think if they did a really good study, I think that's probably the one part of our structure that probably doesn't come terrestrial.
I don't know, bruv. Melanin is in all animals, though. Don't get me wrong. In animal kingdom, is the most used.
But I'm saying this specific type of melanin that forms not just as a superconductor, but it kind of amplifies every other aspect of all the other cells.
Maybe, like I say, maybe it makes us absorb light and turn it into a chemical energy. Maybe a lot of things. Check out the Ndinkra Symbols Connect the Dots Drawing Book series. We have 4 books in the series, all with 33 Ndinkra symbols turned into Connect the Dots puzzles. You have the name of the symbol, the phonetic spelling of the symbol, the meaning of the symbol, and the proverb attached to the symbol, because they usually have one. You can catch them all on Amazon. Enjoy, fun for the kids.
What's good? You know about Forever Family? Yeah. Do you? Yeah, I saw it inside. Alright. What you know about Forever Family? Just heard of it. We're out here giving out free bags.
But I found this really interesting, and as I said, I always say all the time, I learn a lot, and that part about the melanin and the inside of it, I didn't have a clue about. I didn't know about the different parts, like our nose, our ear. I always just thought it was mainly the skin. So the reflectiveness, which I did bring up earlier on about the light and the black, and then now you're talking about the melanin within us and animals. Yeah, it was quite in depth, and I think that it'll be good subject for people to understand about why we should call ourselves black. I think actually works in favour more for that, to be fair. Giving a bit more descriptions about the insides, the internal. I don't speak
black
as
ain't just beautiful, it's powerful.
academic as you
I'd
That's fine,
argue.
that's
I'd
fine.
argue as soon as you start getting into kind of the benefits of neuromelanin,
Yeah.
you start speaking about African black people as
See?
superheroes. Like, that's
That's
where
what
it
I'm
starts
saying.
sounding.
Positive.
But
That's what it starts sounding
Just
like.
Google it. It's just there. It's not even. It's just
Positively.
Google.
And that's not
It's just
trying to
matter
sound
of
like
fact.
that.
It's just matter of
So
fact.
if you
Scientifically
start
speaking.
speaking to people more about the positive associations to counteract the negative connotations that you were talking about.
We're talking about superhuman,
more-
almost
yeah.
paranormal thing. I mean, when you get into
Wait, how about that? It's not superhuman. Remember, blacks was first, so that's human.
No, but what
That's
is
most
superhuman?
human.
What we
That is
are
what.
is
No, it's human. This is the misnomer. That is what makes us human, right? Everyone else derived
Anything
from
else
black
is
people.
animal. Everything else is
Derived from black people. So it is this human thing. Is all of these features. That's human.
Yeah.
And then it is allowed for all the races to appear.
So why
because
can't
of
we
that.
call ourselves superhuman?
Because
Yeah.
we are human, and that is the standard. That's my point. That's even a better. I think that's more beautiful. We are the standard because that is. It's like a wolf and a dog. I love dogs, but the wolf is the prototype, and everything else came from all the domestic dogs, pit bull.
Why some people feel bad when they are called black, eh? But for me, when somebody calls me black, I finally feel good because that identifies me as an African. So people should be proud of being Africans.
I have no problem with the word black. In ancient circles, even Asheru, one of the supreme manifestations of divine consciousness in Kemet, he was known as Lord of the perfect black. Blackness itself was seen as divine. In fact, in certain African cultures, Brother Johnny, the word for God is an intensified word for black. So if we're going to talk about divinity in African deification, then blackness has a place in that. Because for our people, at least in ancient times, blackness was a sign of glory.
So today's episode was about Matchfit presenting what black science means, also what and how we think about what the colour black means, the negative connotations that are associated with it, why we should actually call ourselves black, what's the positives in calling ourselves black. But we've also looked at some of the things that could possibly work against us calling ourselves black. And I think it'll be a really interesting discussion for you to get involved with, the public, the audience, and leave your comments below, send some DMs. I think there's been a lot that's been discussed within this that we have to obviously delve more into as well. So please do like, subscribe, and share, and follow the presenters as well. So with next one, we'll have a bit more delving into what we'll be delving into on the next one.
Sappho, my maroon journey. That's the next episode of Black Science.
And so, yeah, like, subscribe, and share, and look forward to the next one with you both as well.
Oh, shit.
Black science.
Black science. Out.
I think it's just really good to see the engagement on the comments. Someone mentioned something that we didn't mention in the thing. Hold on, which one is it? Using the term black in court means you're non-existent. Spend some time reading the Black Law Dictionary as well as studying. I just think obviously there's so many ways to interpret the usage of the word, that everyone has their kind of own triggers for what they don't necessarily want to associate themselves with, or kind of a counter narrative of how they view black, which is interesting.
Yeah, there's always a counter narrative. I had a back and forth with someone on a post just the other day about this whole nonsense. About this kind of, I think of it as nonsense. The counter narratives, like, so this term, so this is what the comment you're talking about. Using the term black in court means you're non-existent. The brother believes it is rubbish. He means me. I'm saying he means me, that I believe that it's rubbish to not like the term black in the court, right? So he means me. I would suggest he spends more time reading the Black Law Dictionary as well as studying the origin of language etymology. It will open your eyes and mind as to why white is not responded to in a negative way, whilst black is. Understanding the origin, roots of a language will put this discussion into perspective. So, essentially, on the one thing he's saying, he's trying to go to the black law to the law dictionary, and he's trying to say, in legal terms, black means a dead person. I think that's the definition he's talking about. I should have looked it up, but I've heard this argument before. In this law dictionary, black refers to somebody dead, somebody non-existent, something like that, right? So, for that reason, it's a negative term. That point, first of all, takes the whole point that was made about the term being black being used in the court of law out of context.
Yeah,
He takes it out of context.
we're speaking about as a self-identifier as opposed to kind of any
a
kind
legal
of
terminology.
yeah.
And the point being made wasn't about whether it means you're dead or alive. It was like he feels that you're discriminated against more if you identify as black than if you identify as African. So that's not his argument. Isn't dealing with that concept that having a title black means you're going to be discriminated against, like in a derogatory way, not in a legal way. I'm not talking about the law. This is the point I'm making. So he's kind of taking it out of context. And then the second point he's making is, if you look at the etymology of the word in the English, actually, we went over that in the episode about the negative connotations associated with black in English. In Old English, black wasn't even negative. We established that. But we do understand there are negative connotations attached to it in the English language. I even referenced I referenced a Malcolm X movie, right, where the dictionary definitions were used and it was associated with negative. So that was kind of addressed, is how I feel. This brother hasn't noticed that was kind of addressed. The point doesn't change that if you're talking about black and you're saying it's negative, there is only negative via connotations. According to even his statement, it is negative according to the way this language has decided it's negative, which is the point I'm making. Even if he's 100% right and this language has decided to link it with negativity, that's just one language, that's just one culture. It doesn't matter. It's just how.
I mean, I think ultimately it's out of context, but I think like in, I guess, looking at all the angles and looking at all of the different ways, it's not a kind of one of the comments that stood out to me, because I think it was something that we did touch on bits of the comment, but in terms of kind of the usage of the term black in legal terms, that's changed over the centuries, and I think that's also an interesting discussion. And I don't think he mentioned it in with that sentiment in mind, but I think it is an interesting discussion to see how in the English language, like through maritime law and through legal documentation, the term black has been used. That's an interesting discussion, and that's what it kind of made me think about or consider. So
one thing I did notice, I saw it on a few different platforms, and it never occurred to me until I saw it being stated by a few different sisters that they liked the fact a black man was bringing up colorism. And that had never occurred to me. I never noticed that black men don't talk about colorism, because I kind of follow a lot of Pan-African types. So the black men that I see speaking on this topic talk about it.
Yeah, that was one of the first comments, and I did think to myself, what is colorism a space where it's generally our sisters that speak about it? I didn't see that.
Yeah, so you're like me, but it's only in hindsight I recognize where that's coming from. In my view, obviously, it's that the way it works now, right, in this Western world, the black male is seen as desirable, so they don't really feel colorism in the same way the black woman feels it, because it's the light or the white skin female that is seen as the object of desire, isn't it? That's the narrative. So that's my logic, because I was just like you. I never thought of it like that. Never thought of it like that, but I see like 3 different people who said it. So I was like, okay, so it's definitely a thing that it seems like black men don't bring up colorism, but we're some of the most colorist people, so I think that is a strange truth. If it's true, that, I mean, it must be, because the women then must know that they must be talking. I remember when, what's her name? The sister, what's her name? Mills?
ZZ
No, but
Mills.
ZZ Mills, yeah. She was big on colorism at first. I remember, like, and when I think about it, there's no ZZ Mills equivalent in the UK in terms of talking on that topic. Can you think of a black UK don that's really talks about colorism at any point? Like I said, I could think of ZZ Mills. When I heard that, I could think, you know what, it's true, ZZ Mills was one time. I can't think of nobody, I can think of her quite clearly.
I've seen both George the Poet and Akala speak to it, but I think maybe both of those two bits of commentary might not have got the same type of broad attention that a ZZ Mills gets. ZZ Mills tends to kind of attract a wider audience, that people that don't generally wouldn't necessarily have the same algorithms as the three of us in terms of like streams of black consciousness or certain types of pages. ZZ Mills, when she touches on a conscious subject, it may well to the broader audience look like it's only her or people in that specific like field, that kind of influencer field that speaks about it. But I'm sure I've seen like Mandem podcasts where man will speak about colorism. They might not necessarily always label it or title it in the thing or it be a key feature, but I've definitely seen it discussed by people that we wouldn't necessarily consider to be woke or conscious. So even if it's just about the type of gal that people are attracted to, I think colorism does feed into a lot of things, but maybe it's just not labeled or named like that.
I agree. You know what, as well, even that Van Banter guy, I used a clip from Van Banter, right, when he's going around asking people what kind of gal they like and whatnot, yeah.
What kind of girls are you into? No dark skins. I don't really fuck with black girls. Not too dark. Not them black girls like Sharkeishas. Black things, I can't really run that way still.
I think he, on a subconscious, not even necessarily subconscious level, he was trying to speak on it in the best way he could figure out. Like what you're saying, a lot of man do talk on like it in some type of way, but not in the way maybe as easy did. Do you get what I mean? But they do talk on it. You're right. When I think about it now, I've seen other pods where, man talk about being cooked when they was younger, getting cooked for being dark. It was peak being dark at a certain time period. Now they bant it out. Do you get it? Because a man don't really care about his appearance in that way. Do you get what I'm trying to say in that sense where, you know what I mean? But that's how man talk about it, basically. But then you got to look, we don't talk about it with no seriousness. You say George the Poet and Akala, and I ain't caught them talking about it, but I will know them two would talk about it with seriousness. So I would just assume when they did talk about it, they're gonna, because I can kind of imagine the kind of narratives they would talk about. They would talk about it with seriousness. But what you're saying is too, man do touch on it. But what I will say is when man do touch on it, we don't talk about it seriously. I think what the ladies that did comment on it was kind of suggesting is that man was talking about it with a bit of seriousness. Like it's not a banter thing. Let's actually talk about this actual reality. And I think that's what they liked. And I even, a couple man messaged me and said, yeah, bro, it's a serious topic. I like how man are talking about it properly, because we weren't trying to be funny about it, because it's a real thing. It's not banter. It's not even about the school situation or how when we're young. It's a real thing within our communities, and it is something that, it's global with us. So it isn't like a UK thing, it isn't a US thing, it's just everywhere we are. So it's mad to not address it, right?
No, it's important. Definitely important.
It's about controlling the narratives. You understand me?
We have been difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think
what they say ain't what it is. That's why we all control the narrative. I said, what they say ain't what it is. That's why we gotta control the narrative.
You understand me? It's about controlling the narratives. You understand me?
Symbolism Boot Camp is a program we've created for 8 kids, secondary school kids preferably. And basically we teach strength and conditioning, we teach boxing, fundamentals, meditation, which includes breath work and mindfulness, and nutrition. We just teach them some things that we had to learn in later life, and it would have been nice if someone had told us a bit earlier. Now, it's a community funded program, raise money to run this and pay for this. We give them a whole bunch of kit. They all get some gloves, they all get wraps, they all get a medicine ball, exercise mat, skipping rope, and they all get a resistance band. They even get some more stuff from sponsors that have supported this boot. And it's all done in Brixton Street Gym, the original sponsor. Yeah, if anybody's interested, please get in contact, pypbootcamp@gmail.com if you want to try and get involved in the next one, because we're going to keep running this, try and keep it a system program. On that note, I'll read out a comment that somebody wrote. I can't remember what platform this was, but they said colorism is a thing everywhere, sadly, even outside of our community. Darker skinned people definitely get the worst treatment by our own and outside, especially in the US. Didn't really remember it that much as a youth in the UK, but maybe that Western American influence rubbed off in the past few decades. But even then, Asians do it to each other, Indians do it to each other, whites do it when it comes to ginger/redheads. Yeah, it's true. And sadly, it also happens within Africa. Now, this is the thing I wanted to talk about, and she puts in brackets, or he, be that from Western influence or just nature of humanity. So, where does colorism really come from?
We spoke about that briefly, didn't we? We spoke about the different types of places socially it could come from in one of our episodes.
Like it's a modern. I would argue that colorism, as well as like I don't know, like critical race theory, like these things are kind of modern social constructs. I think before maybe the 11th or 12th century, I'm not sure we had the same sort of attachment to the negative and positive connotations that we see in modern times. I think it's a modern phenomenon. I think I think it's become polarized for us because we've had issues globally with oppression as darker skinned peoples, and I think we do see it more prevalently in the last couple of 100 years. But I think for me, it's a modern issue that we've all internalized.
No, I hear it. All right. So the caste system in India, that's not modern.
No, but it is though, isn't it?
The caste system in India, it's almost as old as what they call the Hindu religion. It's more of a culture, right? It's the culture of the Indus Valley. But ever since I've heard it be debated, but ever since the Aryan people or whatever people invaded them, they've had a caste system. Colorism exists in Asia, bro. In the Chinese or the Oriental culture.
Yeah, no. When I said it's a modern concept, I didn't mean it's a modern Western or modern European concept. I think it's a modern global concept.
But the Indians have had it since before the 12th century, bro.
Look, the caste system. The AI said the caste system in India is at least 3,000 years old.
Exactly, 3,000.
It's one of the oldest social hierarchies that still exist.
Mm-hmm. That's 3,000.
I don't know if 3,000 years ago it was based on color or status alone, and the color thing came in later.
No, but it's still a form of colorism because it's within the race. You were actually classed depending on your there's class attached to it, but that's how this thing works. You see, that's a whole nother topic, right? Because people like to get around this race thing by saying it's not a race thing, it's a class thing. But that's bullshit.
No, I don't think it's a class thing more recently. I think it's interesting when we look at India and there's different tribes that was specifically in different castes, and I think it doesn't say it here, but you kind of see the different categories, if you like, the 4 main categories, and you can only imagine that the top ones are the lightest, and it kind of gets darker as you get further down.
The darker you are, the more. I remember the last term they were called untouchables, whatever that means in Hindu, whatever that is in Hindu. But they called it untouchables, and they were the darkest. They were color coded, but it was a form of colorism. It is, and even in the Oriental regions, you know, they have a form of colorism. Like, and I know the most ancient people in China were dark, so at some point they developed this colorist logic, right? And it's
hold on,
not.
it's got Brahmins, priests and teachers,
Mm-hmm.
Custodians, warriors and rulers, Vishyas, farmers, traders and merchants, and the Shudras, or the laborers.
Shudras, the untouchables.
Shudras is the laborers. There's at the bottom of the pile.
And they were darker.
Okay.
So colorism. So my thing is, yeah. Obviously, I do respect there's a certain way it's manifested right now, you know, for black people, and yeah, that is a recent creation. But like, just to play devil's advocate, I mean, this person is asking, is it human nature? Because it keeps popping up. This keeps seeming to happen, right? And one argument for it being human nature is between males and females of any race, the female is generally a bit lighter than the male, right?
In what sense?
That's just generally the case.
Is it?
Yeah. The female is generally lighter than the male, right? So the male is darker, the female is lighter. So maybe this is me just trying to logicify it, maybe to trying to argue for the point, right? So maybe there is some sort of argument that lightness is more subconsciously attached to attractiveness, because obviously the female of the species is the more attractive of the species, right? Or for lack of a better way of seeing it, right? That's in simple terms. So maybe because that generally happens, it doesn't matter which group of people it is, the female is usually lighter. Like, do you get what I'm saying? They just, and I don't know the biology behind it, but that's generally what happens. This is me trying to argue for it's a natural thing, trying to see what arguments are there for it being a natural thing. I don't think it's a natural thing. It's definitely a social construct. There's no way colorism isn't a social construct. It is what a culture determines as valid is what the culture will believe is valid, and that's constructed by beliefs and traditions and ideas. But I'm trying to see if there is a natural route for this stuff.
I think
to
the
come
natural
to
for me, the natural route would be that if we take, well, if I don't take race out of it completely, but in terms of how I would say it probably starts is when we start to kind of have, we stop being pastoral, we start building societies, and we build these rules, and those rules create a poverty and wealth gap. So I don't think my point is that I think it starts out with a class thing. So with the same way they've described the caste system in India, having the top caste was actually supposedly the teachers, the professors, and then it got kind of down the kind of professional before it got to kind of the laborers. At some point, I'm assuming with migrations into these civilizations of darker skinned people, they would always start at the bottom, and then potentially that caste system became visually you can see what people look like. My point is I don't know if it began as a race. The origin, I don't know if the origins of it would be race. I think the origin would have been, we've got these societies, we've got these cultures, or we've got these civilizations, we've got these urban collections of dense populated people, we've got rules, and then with these kind of the economy of whatever the civilization's working with, there's going to be a class system that develops. And I think successive migrations will mean that potentially the darker people that come in will start at the bottom, and then potentially it'd be difficult for them to have any, I don't know, social mobility, for example.
I hear what you're trying to do. In practical terms, what happened in this valley is it was a conquering thing. Because I had this discussion with somebody else. It's a power thing when it's actually developed. I was trying to rationalize this person's comment because they're trying to say maybe it's nature. I'm trying to say, all right, let's give that some credence. What biological function could lead to us naturally being more somehow impressed by lighter skin? And I'm trying to say the only conclusion I can come up with is that females are generally lighter than males. The darker skin is more linked to strength. and the female skin is, and the lighter skin is more linked to femininity. This is my argument: femininity and prettiness, softness. You know, babies are lighter as well. Do you know what I mean? And you might get darker as you grow up. But when you're a baby, do you know what I mean? It's like softer. And I don't know how to. You get what I'm saying? It's like with lions. You know, with lions, the dark-haired mane, that's the strong male. Do you get what I'm trying to say? The lighter the mane, that's the softer the male. It's a softer feature to be lighter. It's a stronger feature to be darker.
I think that's
So this is the
a reach,
biology.
but yeah.
No, that's facts. No. That's a
No,
fact.
I'm saying in terms
lions.
of like that, in terms of the female being lighter. I think I'd argue that
That's
in terms
biology,
of the
bro.
Yeah,
I'm saying that's
I
not
agree with Never. I was just sitting here thinking the same. I'm like, I don't know if
But
I
I
agree
think
with them.
the idea though that we're kind of born lighter because we come out of darkness, and the idea that the lighter you are, the closer you are to your birth, or the closer you are to that coming out of the void, or coming like the purity, if you like. I can almost understand that concept of
I didn't think
like
of that.
like
Still,
we
yeah.
get darker as we get older. We get do we become tainted as
No,
nature
we
begins to
grow
kind of
into
impact?
our full
No, we
power.
don't. But we
I
don't.
hear what
Yeah,
you're
but
saying.
I'm
I
just
hear
saying
what
in
you're
terms. I
saying.
can
Yeah.
understand the concept of colorism coming from all different types of things, but I can kind of
I
it
see that.
makes
I get,
sense. Some
I
of the
get.
logics of potentially being that. But I don't know if how we see it now, it began that way. I think I would argue that probably it did begin as a social construct in terms of class systems like laborers. What we'd see is kind of the working class, the middle class, and the upper class in terms of professionalism, in terms of education, and I think migration into these populated places, darker people that found it more difficult to kind of socially be more mobile, and then the working class are then the connotation is that you're the darker skinned people.
No, I hit in real terms. That's not what actually happened. What actually happened, it was conquering powers in the Indus Valley. It was a conquering people came in that were lighter. They're ruling over the darker people. They interbreed with the darker people. Naturally, their kids are going to be lighter. That's the beginning of the class system. So the ruling people have an interracial relationship with the darker people. They have the lighter kids, so they want to put the lighter kids in a better position. And the people that are darker are naturally more indigenous. So you are not part of the ruling class, i.e. the conquering class. That's where it actually developed from in practical terms. So I'm not even talking about in real situations. Similarly, with our situation, how we've got colorism is through the same mechanism, right? Before outsiders came and conquered Africans and conquered African lands and took we didn't have this colorist logic. It wasn't employed. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because everyone was within their community and whatever different shades you had throughout Africa, when you're within that community, pretty much everyone's the same shade. Like go back to my ends, everyone looked like me. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Even
So
that's I mean, I think it's a good point. What's interesting for me is that the example you give of the lighter toned Indian took over the darker skin. Was the intention that the darker skin was less worthy of sovereignty, or was it because we just feel like we're stronger? That was the intention that we take over this darker skinned geographic area because they are less than us because we're
no, it's
lighter
just
skinned.
power. No,
And I
no,
think this
that's
this is
secondary.
I just
Power.
yeah I just wonder in terms of I think what I'm when I argue that I think colorism is a modern term, I just wonder in terms of it seems like power status and conquering and imperialism is the kind of the first
Yeah.
priority.
Yes.
And then colorism kind of comes in as a secondary
It's a consequence.
consequence of
Yeah.
that imperialism.
No, it factually. This is what I'm saying. It factually does. What I'm saying is, it factually did in the Indus Valley. It factually did with our situation now as black people throughout the diaspora and within Africa now. That's where this logic came from, factually speaking. Right? With the Oriental people, I don't know where their logic came from, but some culture might have that in them. But they definitely had darker skinned people back in their ancestry. So it would be interesting to actually find out the history of where their kind of colorist logic
But I
came from.
think we can we in the Western world we can probably trace some of the origins of colorism to the Hamitic curse of the Bible and kind of
I think that's the other way around. That was put into it. It didn't always exist. they added that narrative in there to give credence to
No,
their
but
racist.
this is my point. At what point do you think the curse of Ham came, or the curse of the African or darker skinned nation people?
That came after the fact. I don't even think it was then. Constantine in that verse, that treaty that officiated the Christian version, the Roman Christian Catholicism, whatever. It wasn't there at that point. Because you got to remember, in early Christendom, all of the fucking apostles were black, bro. Jesus was black. There's bare pictures. No one had a problem with blackness. Roman Empire had black emperors. No one had a problem with blackness or darkness. The ancient world had a thing for blackness as far as that side of the world was concerned. Darkness was seen as powerful and many benefit. So it was after the fact. It was after the fact that this logic was employed. This curse of Ham and having the dark skin as being a curse. That's a new thing in the Abraham thing, and I'm saying that was.
So I'm saying I think that's the mod. This is the modern forms of colorism that I'm speaking about. Like when we see it coming out of being preached out of biblical texts from like the 12th, 13th century, that we start seeing, and we may well see it before, but I think I would argue that in the Western world, in terms of what colonialism was, there was a strong justification of Ham and the barbarians of the East being justified for the slave trade.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right.
And that's
That
why I
is
say
the
it's
modern
modern.
version.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the modern version. But I was just saying that was put in there to support it. It already existed. Then they started using the biblical argument. They invented the biblical argument to support this logic.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting at. They invented that. It wasn't there in the Bible before, and then it was.
Well, no, the Hamitic curse was there. It's just that how
No,
they
in this
differentiate.
narrative. In this narrative, I mean, in this
The
specific
differentiation
narrative.
of the different houses of Israel being linked to different racial groups.
Yes, exactly.
That's quite modern.
That's what I'm getting at. So because remember, you posed it as if maybe it came from that.
Yeah.
Maybe it came from the Abrahamic faiths having that. And I'm saying, no, that interpretation of it is new. That is a modern thing. So obviously, for that interpretation to have been imposed, the view must have existed before the interpretation existed.
Yeah.
So the view was given, and then they superimposed that interpretation into biblical text. It wasn't there before, right? So, like I was saying, like, in the West, it is definitely a social construct, and even in the Indus Valley, it was a social construct that came. It was via power. It was those in power were the lighter ones. They were conquering. They were imperialist, and then they had to impose their will on the indigenous people who were darker. And then colorism is just a simple manifestation of that power dynamic between the oppressor and the oppressed. It's just going to manifest. It's unavoidable, right? I was simply trying to establish, because the person in this comment mentioned, is it just human nature? Because some people try and argue that there is just, because it's so prevalent throughout the world in different cultures, maybe that's just what the way we are, right? And they're trying to, and I didn't want to just slap that argument down and just say that's dumb, right? Maybe there is something.
I think ultimately there's an aspect of prejudice that is in human nature, and I think there's also an inclination to protect self, or protect your tribe, whatever your tribe is, however you self-identify that tribe, not necessarily color, but there is a, and I think prejudices come out of that. Prejudices come out of lack of understanding. So that part is human nature. I think the beginnings of the prejudice that leads to colorism is definitely human nature, because prejudice is a part of our frailties or our vulnerabilities as humans. I do agree with that, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that colorism, as we see it now, is human nature, because I think you can trace it back. It is quite modern in terms of the different layers of it are quite modern. You can trace aspects of colorism through imperial action, or just kind of before colonialism, imperialist action, right the way through the world. Away from kind of just Europeans and blacks, you'll see it in kind of Ming dynasties, the Eastern dynasties. You'll see it throughout the modern world. That imperialism leads to strong prejudices being hereditary and tribalism is can be. Yeah.
No, I agree. So I made the same argument to a brother. I was arguing it. He's there trying to basically say racism isn't something that you blame an individual group for. It's human nature. He's trying to make this argument. It's just human nature. You know, we have this in group. What you're basically saying, we all mammals have this in group logic. All mammals have this in group logic, so that if they're outside of the group, they don't treat them as equals as if they are inside of the group. So this is, and this is how I broke it down to him, bruv. You see what, yeah? Humans and all mammals, but humans, for example, have a violent streak. We have an innate ability to fight, right? Whether it's for self-defense, whether it's for offense, whether it's to hunt, we all have a violent streak, and we will, you know, babies will hit another baby or hit you even, like your own baby will hit you, right? We have a violent streak, right? But to have kung fu is not natural, right? Somebody has to teach. First, someone has to learn kung fu, figure out all the ways it functions, and then has to teach it to other people for other people to learn kung fu, and then it becomes a culture, and then it becomes a tradition and a system and a certain way that it's done and a certain way it's enacted. Just because we have the innate ability to be violent, we're not just naturally going to develop kung fu. And it's similarly, just because we have this in-group psychology inbuilt into us as mammals, we're not naturally just going to have a systematic discrimination system called racism. That's not a natural development. This is something the people at the top, it's a top-down thing. People created it. There's dates and times when the terms and names are made, and the way you're going to manifest this discrimination is going to be decided. Like, we're going to do this and this to impose this situation and benefit these people, and this benefit those people, and you know, things have to be implemented. There's nothing natural about it. It has to be done, and then it has to be maintained. It has to be maintained. People have to keep it up. You know, it's not just going to keep going itself.
I think what's interesting when we say what's human nature, I think what's natural for me in 2025 was not natural for my great grandmother. It was very unnatural. So I think what's human nature really depends on the perspective. So we can look back and say that the things that we've done in the past are more natural than now, but I'm not sure. But I'm not sure. Like, even kind of define like what human nature is. I think again, prejudice is human nature. Colorism and to be racist, and these things aren't necessarily natural. It is human nature to be imperialist. It is in human nature to be colonial.
I disagree.
But I'm saying that there's a logical argument for the darker aspects of human nature, however urbanized or whatever's led to the decision or the culture being that way. Rome had a death culture, had a celebration. So I think there's arguments for both sides. And my point is, what we define now as human nature, I think it changes with perspective and with history.
Whoever's just defining it is obviously going to define it one way and define it, but human nature is just human nature. It doesn't change. What is in human nature is to follow the community, right? We're communal creatures. So
to say that then racism, colorism would be natural because people, but it's natural because it's taught. So what I'm saying is
that's why it's not natural. That's nurture. Nature and nurture, that's the difference. If it had to be taught, then it's not natural. Why I was saying it's not natural is because literally what you said, it had to be taught.
Anything taught isn't natural.
Yeah, if it had to be taught, if it had to be taught for me to think that this person is that status, then obviously it's not natural, because if nobody taught me that, I'm not going to think of this person as that status. What I'm saying is human nature is communal. Human nature naturally are communal. We understand, right, that we need other people. That is our best survival strategy. That's what makes us so successful.
But when we first start seeing people having close geographic conflicts over resources, the beginnings of what we'd call imperialism are a scarcity of resource or a famine.
I would disagree. Is imperialism is a certain logic that was employed by
it's a certain logic. It's a logic that
not everyone that does that.
Not everyone done it. My point is that you get a famine in one area and you get the militant aspect of that specific people group invading the other for resources. What I'm saying is that this can be seen as the beginnings of what became colonialism, what became imperialism. I'm saying is that hunger drove a certain mentality that became greed is human nature, right?
I'm with you.
I'm not saying that your point is wrong, and I'm not even wedded to my point. I'm just saying that when we say human nature, it is very subjective, and I think you're right. Ultimately, you can say it's if you're taught something, then it's not natural. But then everything that we see in modern culture, even down to kind of what we'd call hunter-gatherer culture, is taught. So everything other than what you're taught is natural. Would say most things that we do on a daily basis is unnatural in terms of human nature. And I'd argue that there's reason to say that human nature has developed AI technology, developed all these kind of systems of governing civilizations that from the outside we could quite easily say that doesn't seem natural, but actually it's our ingenuity that's human nature to develop these things, and that's why I say it can be subjective. Is the point I'm making?
So you just mentioned greed, right? Before I mentioned our aggression, our innate ability for aggression, right? All these things are in our nature, right? But to manifest our greed in A behavior, B behavior, C behavior, D, this is where we start going away from what our nature is to have a desire for food. But is it, if my desire for food leads me to cannibalism, am I going to say that's human nature just because it's based on the actual need for food?
It hasn't been taught. It's come out. It's not been taught. It's come.
No, follow what I'm saying. I'm saying no one taught me to be a cannibal. I'm saying just because I'm hungry and now I've done cannibalism, are we going to say it's human nature to be a cannibal?
No, I'm saying that the environment can dictate human nature.
No,
based on survival.
I'm saying, I hear what you're saying, but I'm asking a very specific question for a specific reason, right? I know exactly what you're saying, but this is where I'm trying to point out there's a separation here between the cause and the consequence. The cause is my nature is to desire food to survive, right? This is my nature. I cannot be alive without having that desire. But if because of that desire, I become a cannibal, I cannot say that it's my nature to be a cannibal purely because it was my desire to eat. Similarly, like I said earlier, right? It's my nature to have a violent streak. It's for my own protection that I can be violent. It's maybe so I can even hunt and survive, so I can be violent. But if I create Kung Fu, right, I can't just say it's human nature to create Kung Fu. No, I have to use all sorts of different
logic. Advocate, because it would be logical, being a warrior person, to put structures in place, put a system in place. Is it not? Are our systems of teaching? Are systems natural? Is it in human nature to develop systems? It has to be. We always develop them. Is it in human nature?
So, well, it depends what you mean by system, because you're right. How I'm going to feed myself is a system, right? I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and that's how I'm going to get food.
Like you're hungry, but you get taught recipes. You get taught techniques of seasoning, preparing your food in a certain way.
Yeah, none of that is natural. This is stuff I've learned. It's like boxing. I tell my clients all the time, there's nothing natural about boxing. You have to learn that shit. There's nothing natural about it. Fighting is natural as hell. But the way you box is completely unnatural to a human. You got your strong hand at the back and your weak hand at the front. And you're taught to rotate in a certain way. If you ever see a gorilla or a chimp, other primates fight, they don't punch, right? They got this slamming type, hammer fist type logic going on. And that's basically because we weren't designed to punch. Humans just figured out this is just the way that we can use our body to defend ourselves, right? So we've used, the thing about the human, right, is we are the animal of mind, innit? So we can use our mind to come up with different ways.
And that's you go back to the core. That's the core of it, because actually
I understand
anything that we think of that come from our mind that we make manifest can be seen as our human nature. And I'm not saying it has to be, because you're right.
But this is what I'm saying.
Differentiating
There's
it
a
and
difference.
separating
Yes,
between
that's my
cause
point.
and effect, but you don't necessarily greed that goes beyond kind of the need for something is also, we said, it's in human nature to have greed. So if it's in human nature to have greed, it's in human nature to take what's not yours. That is the beginnings of what we'd call colonialism, imperialism. So what I'm saying is that all of these things can be charted down to an emotion or an environmental need from some environmental change, poor mental health. All of these things can impact. But my point is, it's interesting when you look at how subjective human nature is.
What I'm
Like,
trying to point out is I'm saying that's a cop out. I'm saying it's a cop out to blame these things on human nature. It is
I don't think it's
some
blame. I don't
humans.
think
It
it's
is
a
some
blame.
humans' idea of how to deal with the situation. Like I say, if that human was hungry and he decided to be a cannibal, I'm not going to blame human nature for that. Yeah, because he's come to this conclusion using his warped rationale that is the best way to. That's not his human nature. That's his mindset. He's come to that. That's a justifiable way to deal with that situation. That's not his human nature.
So then,
It's not.
nature, you're saying human nature is more of a group consensus more than
Yeah, we
you couldn't take
invent
one.
shit. This is the thing. We are the creatures of mind. We are unlike animals in this way, where we can step away from instinct. We are not. We're like a blank slate. We can create, and this is where evil comes from. We want to get into this whole spiritual logic, right? This is where the whole concept of evil comes from, and this is why we don't really think animals can do evil things, even when they do fucked up things, but we think humans can, because we understand an animal literally is just going on instinct, where a human thought this shit up off his own whim, right? He might have some. We at the root of anything a human does is our nature. So what I'm getting at is, if we use that argument, then no human has ever done something outside human nature, because you can link every single behavior to human nature. That's why it's a cop out. It's a cop out. You can link. There's not a single thing a human has done which you can't separate, which you can separate from human nature in the context you're describing.
Yeah, that's why I say it's subjective. I don't think it's a cop out.
I don't think it's subjective. I think some things are quite clearly a creation of man. Boxing is a creation of man.
Agree to disagree on that one. Is there another comment, please?
No, but in terms of colorism, because I think the point, like, to round it, to conclude it, colorism, I wouldn't say is human nature. I think prejudice is human nature. But I think it is very interesting when we just kind of use the blanket term human nature to describe anything, because it can be one thing, and it can be all things.
And when people say it's very interesting or use it, I say it's a cop out. And that's why I wanted to talk about that, because I don't like it. Could it just be the nature of humanity? People use that as a cop out. It's just a cop out for the reality that humans have just come up with something evil, and we want to just say, it's just the way we are, man. There's nothing you can do about it.